Have you ever felt that someone was trying to tell you something without saying a single word? Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and sensed a truth they refused to speak aloud? What if I told you that the most important confession your person will ever make may never come through words at all? It will come through their actions, their silence, their hesitation, and the choices they make when they believe no one is watching. Right now, something is changing beneath the surface, and if you fail to recognize it, you may overlook one of the most significant emotional moments of your life. Most people spend years waiting for a message, an apology, or a declaration of love, while completely missing the countless signs that have been revealing the truth all along. The human mind can hide emotions, but the deeper self cannot keep them buried forever. So before you assume you know how your story ends, before you walk away believing silence means the absence of feeling, stay with me until the very end, because what you're about to hear may completely transform the way you understand love, emotional truth, and the hidden language of the human soul. And if this message finds you at exactly the right moment, it could change not only how you see your person, but how you see yourself forever. Hidden emotions possess a remarkable quality that many people overlook. They rarely disappear simply because they are ignored. What is pushed beneath the surface does not cease to exist. Instead, it continues to influence thoughts, decisions, relationships, and behaviors from places outside conscious awareness. A person may convince themselves that they have forgotten someone, buried an old wound, or moved beyond a powerful feeling, yet the emotional energy remains active beneath the personality they present to the world. The mind is capable of constructing convincing stories about why something no longer matters, but the deeper layers of the psyche often tell a different story. This is why human beings sometimes act in ways that contradict what they openly claim to believe. Their hidden emotional world quietly directs them toward unresolved experiences, revealing truths they may not even fully understand themselves. These concealed emotions often emerge in subtle rather than dramatic ways. They reveal themselves through repeated habits, unexpected reactions, recurring dreams, unexplained sadness, sudden moments of joy, or an unusual emotional response to something that appears insignificant. A familiar song, a particular place, or even a passing conversation can awaken feelings that seemed long forgotten. Such moments remind us that emotional experiences leave lasting impressions within the psyche. Although the conscious mind may attempt to organize life neatly into the past and the present, the unconscious does not always recognize those boundaries. It stores emotional experiences until they are acknowledged, understood, or integrated into a person's broader understanding of themselves. Many people believe emotional suppression is a sign of strength. They assume that refusing to acknowledge fear, grief, affection, or disappointment will eventually make those feelings disappear. Yet suppression often produces the opposite effect. Hidden emotions continue searching for expression because every genuine feeling seeks recognition. They may appear as impatience toward loved ones, hesitation in forming new relationships, or a persistent sense that something important is missing. The person may not immediately connect these experiences to emotions they have buried, but the connection exists nonetheless. The inner world constantly communicates through symbols, behaviors, and emotional patterns, even when the conscious mind remains unaware of the message. This explains why actions frequently reveal more than carefully chosen words. Someone may insist they have moved on, while repeatedly revisiting memories that keep a particular person alive in their thoughts. They may avoid direct conversations while unconsciously creating opportunities to remain connected. They might deny their affection yet become deeply affected by another person's happiness, absence, or success. These contradictions are not necessarily deliberate attempts to deceive others. More often, they reflect the ongoing dialogue between conscious intentions and unconscious, emotional reality. The hidden feeling gradually finds expression because maintaining complete separation between inner truth and outward behavior becomes increasingly difficult over time. Recognizing this reality encourages greater patience and awareness, both toward ourselves and toward others. Instead of assuming every action is entirely logical or every statement fully represents someone's emotional state, we begin to appreciate the complexity of the human mind. Hidden emotions are not permanent prisoners. Given enough time, reflection, or meaningful experience, they naturally seek expression, whether through honest conversation, consistent behavior, unexpected vulnerability, or quiet personal transformation. What has been deeply felt eventually moves toward the light, reminding us that the truths buried within the heart rarely remain hidden forever. Words have an extraordinary ability to shape perception, but they are not always the most reliable reflection of a person's emotional reality. Human beings often choose their words carefully, influenced by fear, pride, uncertainty, or the desire to protect themselves from vulnerability. A person may speak confidently while feeling insecure, claim indifference while carrying deep affection, or promise commitment without the intention of following through. Because language passes through conscious thought, it can be edited, restrained, or even used to conceal genuine emotions. Actions, however, are much harder to control over long periods. They arise from habits, priorities, emotional investment, and unconscious motivations, making them a far more accurate window into what someone truly feels. When someone genuinely values another person, that feeling naturally influences their behavior. They make time even when life is busy, remember details that others overlook, offer support without being asked, and consistently show interest in the other person's well-being. These actions rarely require dramatic gestures. Instead, they appear through reliability, attention, patience, and the willingness to remain present during both joyful and difficult moments. Such behaviors are difficult to fake indefinitely because they require continuous emotional energy. Someone can pretend for a short while, but maintaining genuine consistency without authentic feeling eventually becomes exhausting. This is why observing patterns is more meaningful than reacting to isolated moments. Almost anyone can say the right thing during an emotional conversation, apologize after making a mistake, or express affection when they fear losing someone. Yet isolated words reveal very little about long-term emotional truth. What truly matters is whether those words become visible through repeated actions over time. If someone repeatedly says they care, but continually disappears when support is needed, their behavior communicates something very different from their promises. On the other hand, a person who struggles to express emotions verbally may quietly demonstrate deep affection through loyalty, protection, and thoughtful acts that consistently show their commitment. Human behavior often reveals priorities without requiring direct explanation. Every individual chooses where to invest their time, attention, and emotional energy. These choices speak with remarkable clarity. Someone may claim they are too busy to communicate, yet somehow find time for countless other activities. They may insist they value honesty while repeatedly avoiding difficult conversations. Conversely, they may rarely use grand romantic expressions, but consistently create space for meaningful connection, remember important dates, check on someone's well-being, and remain dependable through changing circumstances. Such actions communicate emotional truth more powerfully than carefully constructed speeches ever could. Fear also plays an important role in the difference between words and actions. Many people sincerely feel love or attachment, but struggle to express it openly because vulnerability feels threatening. They may hesitate to confess their emotions, fearing rejection or disappointment. Even so, those feelings often emerge through unconscious behavior. They linger longer during conversations, notice subtle changes in the other person's mood, become protective without realizing it, or continue seeking opportunities for connection despite saying very little. These quiet expressions often reveal emotions that words fail to capture. The unconscious mind influences behavior even when the conscious mind remains guarded. Understanding this difference encourages a more balanced perspective in relationships. Instead of becoming captivated by impressive declarations or discouraged by temporary silence, attention shifts toward consistency. Genuine feelings create steady patterns of care, respect, honesty, and presence. While words can inspire hope or create confusion, repeated actions gradually uncover the emotional reality beneath them, allowing truth to become visible through behavior rather than promises. The fear of vulnerability is one of the most powerful forces shaping human relationships. Many people long for deep connection, affection, and understanding, yet at the same time, they fear the very openness required to experience those things. To be vulnerable means allowing another person to see emotions that cannot be fully controlled or protected. It means admitting that someone matters, that their presence has influence, and that their actions have the power to bring joy or pain. For many individuals, this feels dangerous because it threatens the carefully constructed sense of independence and control that helps them feel safe. This fear often develops from past experiences. Someone who has been rejected, abandoned, betrayed, or emotionally hurt may learn to associate openness with risk. Even if they consciously desire love, another part of them remembers the pain that followed previous vulnerability. As a result, they may begin protecting themselves by hiding their feelings, avoiding difficult conversations, or pretending they are less emotionally invested than they truly are. The protection becomes automatic. They may not even realize how strongly fear is influencing their behavior, because the mind becomes skilled at creating logical explanations for emotional avoidance. A person experiencing this conflict often sends mixed signals. They may move closer emotionally and then suddenly withdraw. They may seek connection, enjoy intimacy, and reveal parts of themselves, only to become distant when the relationship begins to feel truly significant. This can be confusing for the other person, who may interpret the withdrawal as lack of interest. In reality, the opposite may be true. The relationship feels important enough to awaken fears that had previously remained dormant. The closer someone gets to genuine emotional exposure, the stronger the instinct to protect themselves can become. Pride also plays a major role. Vulnerability requires acknowledging that another person has become emotionally meaningful. For some individuals, this feels like losing control. They worry that expressing love first, admitting they miss someone, or revealing how deeply they care will place them in a weaker position. Rather than risk feeling dependent or exposed, they hide behind silence, humor, busyness, or emotional detachment. Yet beneath these defenses, the feelings often continue growing. The more they are suppressed, the more they may emerge through indirect behaviors, such as increased attention, jealousy, curiosity, or an inability to fully let go. The unconscious mind frequently reveals what the conscious mind tries to conceal. Someone may insist they are fine while constantly checking for signs of the other person. They may avoid emotional conversations, yet remember small details with remarkable precision. They may claim they have moved on, while feeling unexpectedly affected by news about the other person's life. These contradictions arise because the hidden emotional world is still active, even when outward behavior appears guarded. Understanding the fear of vulnerability helps explain why some people struggle to express genuine feelings directly. It does not excuse harmful behavior or endless inconsistency, but it reveals that emotional avoidance is often rooted in self-protection rather than complete absence of feeling. Many individuals are not afraid of love itself. They are afraid of what love might expose within them. They fear rejection, loss, disappointment, and the possibility that someone could see their deepest emotional needs. Yet meaningful connection becomes possible only when those defenses gradually soften, and honesty becomes stronger than fear. Many people believe that meaningful relationships begin the moment two individuals meet, but lasting connection often starts much earlier, within the quiet process of inner transformation. Before two people can truly understand one another, each person is usually invited to confront aspects of themselves that have remained hidden for years. Emotional wounds, limiting beliefs, unresolved fears, and unconscious patterns all influence how people give and receive love. If these inner struggles remain unexamined, they quietly shape every interaction, often creating misunderstanding, emotional distance, or repeated cycles of disappointment. This is why genuine connection is rarely sustained by attraction alone. It requires personal growth that begins long before any lasting reunion can take place. Every individual carries an inner world formed by childhood experiences, personal victories, painful losses, and forgotten disappointments. These experiences become the foundation of emotional habits. Someone who has repeatedly experienced rejection may expect abandonment, even when no real threat exists. Another person who learned to suppress emotions may struggle to communicate affection, despite feeling it deeply. These unconscious patterns operate beneath awareness, influencing reactions without deliberate intention. Until they are recognized, people often repeat the same relationship dynamics with different individuals, believing that circumstances are changing while the underlying emotional pattern remains the same. Inner transformation begins when a person becomes willing to observe these patterns instead of blaming every difficulty on external events. Rather than asking why relationships keep failing, they begin asking what beliefs, fears, or emotional habits continue to shape their choices. This shift requires honesty, because it means accepting that not every obstacle comes from another person's actions. Sometimes the greatest barriers exist within one's own emotional landscape. The willingness to face uncomfortable truths creates the possibility of genuine change, allowing old patterns to lose their influence over present decisions. Growth is rarely comfortable because it challenges familiar ways of thinking. The mind often resists change, even when old habits create suffering, simply because familiarity feels safer than uncertainty. A person may cling to emotional walls that once provided protection, not realizing those same defenses now prevent meaningful intimacy. Letting go of these protective habits can feel unsettling because it requires trusting experiences that cannot be fully controlled. Yet this process gradually replaces fear with greater emotional maturity, allowing relationships to be built on openness rather than self-protection. As transformation continues, perception itself begins to change. Situations that once triggered anxiety may now invite understanding. Conversations that previously ended in conflict become opportunities for honest communication. Instead of reacting impulsively to emotional discomfort, a person develops the ability to pause, reflect, and respond with greater awareness. This inner stability naturally influences every relationship because people no longer seek others to complete what they have neglected within themselves. They begin relating from a place of wholeness rather than emotional dependency. When two individuals undergo this kind of personal growth, the possibility of genuine reunion becomes far more meaningful. They are no longer meeting as versions of themselves shaped entirely by fear or unresolved pain. Instead, they bring greater self-awareness, emotional responsibility, and a clearer understanding of what healthy connection requires. Their interactions become less focused on proving worth or seeking constant reassurance, and more centered on mutual respect, honesty, and shared growth. The relationship evolves because both people have evolved internally, creating space for trust and emotional security that could not have existed before transformation began. This process reminds us that meaningful relationships are not simply about finding the right person, but also about becoming emotionally prepared to recognize, receive, and sustain genuine connection when it arrives. Inner transformation does not guarantee that every relationship will endure, but it ensures that future connections are approached with greater wisdom, authenticity, and emotional balance, making lasting intimacy possible in ways that were previously beyond reach. Intuition is one of the most misunderstood aspects of human experience because it rarely announces itself with certainty or dramatic evidence. Instead, it appears quietly, as a subtle inner knowing that seems to arise without deliberate reasoning. While the logical mind depends on facts, analysis, and visible proof, intuition gathers information from countless observations that exist beneath conscious awareness. It notices changes in tone, body language, emotional energy, recurring patterns, and small inconsistencies that the conscious mind often overlooks. As these subtle details accumulate, they create an impression that cannot always be explained through words, yet it often carries surprising insight into emotional truth. The human mind constantly absorbs far more information than it consciously recognizes. Every conversation, facial expression, pause, gesture, and emotional reaction leaves an impression within the deeper layers of awareness. Although the conscious mind cannot process every detail at once, the unconscious quietly organizes these experiences into meaningful patterns. Intuition emerges from this deeper process. What people describe as a gut feeling is often the unconscious recognizing a pattern before the conscious mind has fully understood it. This is why someone may sense that another person's emotions have changed long before any direct confession takes place. Emotional truth frequently reveals itself through signals too subtle for ordinary attention. A person's voice may soften when speaking about someone important. Their eyes may linger slightly longer during a conversation. They may unconsciously smile while recalling a memory, become unusually quiet in someone's presence, or consistently find reasons to remain connected despite claiming emotional distance. None of these behaviors alone prove hidden feelings, but together they create a pattern that intuition begins to recognize. Rather than focusing on isolated moments, intuition responds to the overall consistency of these quiet expressions. Modern life often encourages people to ignore this inner awareness. Decisions are expected to be based entirely on measurable evidence and immediate certainty. While logic is essential for making balanced judgments, emotional reality cannot always be reduced to facts alone. Human relationships involve motivations, fears, hopes, and unconscious influences that do not always appear in clear or predictable ways. Intuition complements reason by noticing what emotional patterns suggest before they become obvious through direct action. It does not replace careful thinking, but works alongside it, offering another perspective that can deepen understanding. However, genuine intuition should not be confused with fear, wishful thinking, or emotional projection. Fear imagines danger, even where none exists, while wishful thinking creates conclusions based on desire rather than observation. Intuition is different because it develops from quiet awareness instead of emotional urgency. It does not demand immediate action or dramatic conclusions. Instead, it invites careful observation and patience. A calm inner sense that continues to remain consistent over time is often more reliable than a sudden emotional impulse driven by anxiety or longing. Learning to distinguish between these experiences requires honesty and self-awareness. As people become more emotionally balanced, intuition often becomes clearer because it is no longer clouded by unresolved fears or unrealistic expectations. They begin noticing recurring behaviors instead of isolated promises, consistency instead of temporary excitement, and authentic emotional presence instead of impressive words. This deeper awareness allows them to recognize sincerity without becoming trapped by illusion. Rather than searching desperately for signs or forcing meaning onto every interaction, they quietly observe the unfolding pattern of another person's behavior. In doing so, they become better able to recognize when hidden emotions are gradually revealing themselves, not through dramatic declarations, but through the steady and unmistakable language of genuine human connection. In conclusion, the deepest truths of the human heart are rarely hidden forever. Feelings that are denied, ignored, or buried beneath fear eventually seek expression through actions, choices, and quiet moments of honesty. True emotional connection is not built upon empty promises or temporary emotions. but upon self-awareness, courage, consistency, and the willingness to face both light and shadow within ourselves. When we learn to look beyond words and observe the patterns that reveal genuine intention, we begin to understand not only others, but also ourselves. The greatest transformation does not happen